Luke, the 10th chapter, verse 38 says, "Now it came to pass as they went that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house." Talking about Jesus here. "And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Mary was cumbered about much serving and came to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister," does this sound like anybody you know? "Do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she get up and come help me." Added a few words in there. "And Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are careful and troubled about many things. But one thing is needful, and Mary has chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her." Now, I like this story because I like Mary. I know, I appreciate ladies who work in the kitchen. I appreciate dinner sometimes on the ground. Well, I cook at the house, so I can't say much about the house thing or that. But I do like Mary because she would never stare at me like Martha is right now on the front row. Pull this back just a tad for safety's sake. There's a cute phrase here that really ought to get all of us today, and I hope it does, and that is Jesus saying to the woman fixing to serve him food, trying to make him comfortable in her home, Jesus saying to her, one thing is needful, and Mary has chosen that. So what is that one needful thing that Mary had chosen? I can tell you what it's not because of this story. I can tell you that it's not serving. It's not service that you provide. It's not eating, not fellowshipping. We do that sometimes in church. It's not entertaining. It's not enjoying the festivities. So we're only reduced to this in this story, that the one needful thing is apparently sitting at Jesus' feet and hearing his word. And just on that premise alone, let me have these next few minutes to I just hope that these few comments will find a lodging place in your brain, in your heart, in your spirit, because it tells us where I think we need to be in our faith in Christ. Number one, Mary was busy, but she was not too busy. I don't know about all of you, but it seems to me life is more complicated now than it was when I was young and carefree. Nobody told me, I tell everybody now, when you're fixing to get married and you come to me for a little advice, the first thing you hear me say is marriage is a series of conflicts. And a successful marriage is not to eliminate all the conflicts, it's to resolve those conflicts peacefully one at a time. The only happy people I know are people who happily resolve conflicts. Nobody ever reaches a place there are none. Man, add some kids in that mix. Add a lost job in there. Fall behind on your taxes. I've done all these things. And see how many more fires that starts in your life, period. I reached a place one time in my first pastorate. My wife and I founded a church in '73 out of Dallas, Rockwall. And on one particular occasion, I was burning the candle at both ends for the church. My wife was trying to keep up with me and just keep us fed. And it was an impossible goal for both of us. And I remember one Saturday night, bewildered, not knowing what to do. I've told this joke a few times. I had a bean bag. You remember the old bean bags? I'm glad those things went out. They were terrible because when you bust them, they get all over the floor, and I busted a few. And I fell down on a bean bag in my office at my house one night in late night prayer. Going to get in bed about midnight again, and Sunday morning calling already. And I just flopped down on that bean bag, and I just said, God, I haven't even prayed this week. I need you to help me. Give me a little wisdom. I don't even have a sermon for tomorrow, and it's midnight. because I'd been out knocking doors. We started the church from scratch, nobody. I had to knock doors every Saturday, just going out. Every door in Rockwall was knocked on by me or a little team of people that came out to help from another church. And then I started going out in the farmland where people had acreage and just pull up to a house and knock on doors. And I'm crawling into that sack, that beanbag at midnight. And it one of those little moments where I literally just laid there knowing if I lay here too long, I'm going to go to sleep. And so I start trying to pray immediately, God, I need help. I need inspiration. I need you to just tell me something. I need a good word from you. And I literally thought I felt somebody pushing on my back, probably fixing to have a heart attack and didn't know it. And I thought I felt somebody pushing on my back, and I had this imaginary moment where I heard God chuckle, finally you stop. I've been trying to get your attention all week, and you just haven't had time to slow down for me. Finally, you stop. And it was silly. It wasn't an audible voice. I don't mean he spoke to me. I mean, he just left that indelible stamp right in my brain. That was the first time I had paused in my running crazy week. That was the first time I had paused. And in that next 30 minutes, I had such a refreshing visit from God that I knew what he wanted from me was for me to come to him first, not last. How often do you go to God as a last resort instead of a first resort? How many times do we try to put out every fire we can put out, and when we finally have a forest fire, we run to God and say, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, I don't know what to do. And nothing wrong with that, because he will help us, but what would happen if we just went to him as a first resort? There's dinner on the stove, Mary. Plates need to be put out. This man has been attracting crowds. We might want to put the fork on the right side of the plate. I don't know which side the fork goes on, but she probably did. Get the best linen out. Do people use linen? I don't know. Best plates. My wife and I have plates that have never been used by us. We don't even know why we have them. They were a wedding gift or inherited from a grandmother. God bless us. They're just there, and we can't get rid of them. I don't know why. And we won't after today either. I'm not making any progress on that goal. Martha, so worried about serving. And somehow in the presence of that man, some people were able to just distinguish between his popularity, his fame, and who he really was. The dedication today comes from parents in the New Testament who, when he was finished laying hands on the blind and eyes opening and making the lame walk again and healing everything among them, and then parents just bringing their healthy kids, just one touch of this man's hand could make a lifelong difference in my child. Some parents, you think every parent did that? No, but some knew. One touch from him. Mary saw something in him Martha didn't see. And she just wanted to come sit down at his feet and listen to him talk. I met a man about 5 years ago at one of my breakfast places. I like breakfast, as you probably know. And at one of my breakfast regular kind of places, I met a man who has remained a friend to this day. And so he and his wife have 4 kids. And somewhere over the last several years, a couple of years back, I just got inquisitive, and they know I'm a pastor. And I said, "Where do y'all go to church?" "Oh, we don't go to church." And I said, I'm not prying, any reason why? "We just don't have time." That was his quick reply. "We got 4 kids. We just don't have time." And I said, "You know I'm a pastor, right?" "Well, I don't mean anything about you, Pastor. I just mean seriously. You ought to be in our household sometime. We got 4 kids." And I said, "Well, all the more reason that you ought to put the parking brake on one day a week and have them in the presence of the Divine One. Where else are they ever going to have an opportunity to just sense that he is near? While you're serving tables, the master is going to pass right through your house, and you'll never know you had an opportunity to visit with the master of all masters. What course in school teaches your child how to draw close to Jesus? What night do you set aside for your family to have family Bible reading and prayer and study? If you don't do any of those things, who is going to tell your child how great the Lord is? Oh, we want them to know, we're Christian. We want them to know that. But now look, I'm not faulting them. I know they're busy. I know you're busy, but look, you're here. God bless you for being here. God bless you for watching by live streaming. You're busy. Life is crazy. When I was much younger than I am now, America was different. A lot of families were just the one working, the dad worked, mom stayed home. I wasn't in one of those families. My mom worked as long as I can remember. When I was probably 4 years old, they had to scoop me out of bed in the morning and put me in the back seat of the car, and Dad would drop Mom off at the laundromat she worked at, and they'd make a pallet under a folding table, and my mother and Miss Fielding ran that laundromat. They didn't just do dry cleaning, they washed clothes and everything in those days. And I slept till about 6:30 under a folding table, and as far as back as my memory goes, my mom worked. And so I'd wake up about 6:30, and Mom would give me a glass of milk and a biscuit for my breakfast, and wet my hair and comb it and put clothes on me, and I'd walk to school about 7:30 or so, just a few blocks away. And when I was 6, but she worked there from the time I was 4 till about 7. And man, my mom worked 6 days a week in that laundromat. And my dad worked 5 days a week and then came home. Every Saturday was work day, mowing and cleaning and fixing and working on cars and repairing. And then Sunday morning came, and it didn't matter if we didn't finish something yesterday, if the car was still up on blocks. It did not matter what was left over on Sunday morning from the week. They had 4 kids, and they got us up and got us dressed and took us to church whether we wanted to go or not. And today I stand here knowing how valuable that was, because it was only in that environment that I learned how to pray, how to reach out and touch the Lord when I needed to. I would hear these verses read, and they would finally start lodging in my brain, sticking in my heart, and making me want to know the Jesus that the preacher preached about, that I heard about. It just made me know he was always available to me. And so some of you pretty much know my story better than I know it. You know that all through my life, I have been raised to believe there is a God who loves me, who cares for me, and who is the most important part of my life. And he remains the most important part of my life. If it comes down to having time to flop down at his feet and enjoy his word, or just go serve you and do something else with you, I'm going to flop down at his feet and grab hold of a few moments with him. I have had to make that part of my habit because, like you, I'm very, very busy. I just don't really have much time to stop unless I make myself stop when I know there's an opportunity to fall down at his feet. And so I do. I try to get up every morning, try to be here at the office by 7:30 almost every day. And I try to answer the phone as many calls as I can, pray for as many folks as I can, help with as many problems as I can, manage and maintain all the things here. It's very, very, don't even have any kids. And yet it's just like, I'm busy 6 days a week, and then Sunday I'm busy then. Mary was busy. Mary knew Martha needed help, but she knew in that moment there's something special about him, and I would rather sit in his presence than worry about feeding him in 30 minutes. And I just throw this out to all of you today. I know you're busy. My friend that I met at breakfast a long time ago, I didn't lecture him. I didn't offer him any advice or scolding when he just said, we got 4 kids. We don't have time to go to church. The only question I ever asked him after that, a few weeks later, I just said, when your kids are your age, will they believe in God or not? Well, I hope so. But what will they believe about him? What information will they have about him that helps them frame an opinion about who God is and what God is? Will they know anything about the end of time? Will they know anything about how to prepare for the Bible's terminology, the last days? In the last days, evil men and seducing spirits are going to wax worse and worse. That's a prophecy in Timothy. Paul said, if you think it's bad now, boys, wait till the last days. The last days, it's going to get worse and worse. You and I can see that it's getting worse and worse today. But you're not troubled by that. Why are you not troubled? Because Jesus himself predicted, when you read the eschatology of Jesus over in Matthew 25, when you start reading that long sermon that he gave, then and it's frightening, the things he predicted are coming. And yet when Christ was through, he said, now when you see these things begin to happen, don't let your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Why? Because I am with you all the way to the end. How do you feel that comfort? Where did you learn that comfort? What gave you that comfort to hold on and live a moral life and hang through tough times and not lose your courage because the bottom fell out or a prayer didn't get answered? What you learned 9 times out of 10 sitting in a church or a Sunday school classroom shapes your faith about the Lord Jesus Christ. She was busy. So are you. We're all busy. But in that one moment, she recognized the greatness of his presence. And she stopped her busyness to sit at his feet. And so must we. She recognized the value of his words. She just wanted to sit and listen to him. This is not the woman who sat and washed his feet with her tears and dried it with her hair. This is a woman that just wanted to sit and listen to him talk. His words are life. I put out a morning devotion every morning. I used to do it every Sunday too, but Sundays are a little too, I don't want to get up that early on Sundays. And so Monday through Saturday, if you're on my email list, you get a morning devotion from me every morning. I've done it pretty much all of my adult life, except I didn't put it out for you to read and bother you. I just did it for myself. I did it because many long years ago, a few decades ago, I challenged the church. I said, the Lord's Prayer. You know the Lord's Prayer? His disciples heard him praying. Something about Jesus praying seemed different than we pray. So when he was finished, they said, Lord, teach us to pray. And he said, well, when you pray, don't pray like the hypocrites do. Long prayers in the synagogue for everybody to hear them. Don't stand on the street corners and pray so everybody knows who you are. When you pray, enter into your closet and pray in secret. And then he taught them, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Give us this day our daily bread. Oop, put the brakes on right there. That's not my 11 o'clock at night prayer, because the day's already spent. Give me today my daily needs has to be prayed in the morning. When I start my day, lead me not into temptation, doesn't do any good at midnight when I'm fixing to go to bed and I've already fallen twice to temptation that day. I got to start my day saying, Lord, lead me today in your will. Not into temptation. Lead me into your will, your service. Let me do what you want me to do today. Give me today my daily bread. So I started doing that years ago. I even told the church one time and somebody mocked me. I said, 2 minutes a day. Can you just give the Lord 2 minutes in the morning? Get in the shower. Nobody knows. Your wife doesn't know you're in there talking to yourself. Just pray, Lord, today. And start your day with an invitation to God to help you get going. And one man in that service went away and told his wife, I'm mocking him now. That's the way she said he said it. When I was coming up, it was sweet hour of prayer. And this pastor just says 2 minutes. And then sometime in his 40s, he got sick and was having a heart attack, and he knew that's what it was, and he called me and asked me to come to the hospital and visit with him that evening, and I drove down to the medical center to have a prayer with him before surgery the next morning, and in that prayer, he started crying gently, and he said, Pastor, I made fun of you when you said 2 minutes a morning. I told my wife I used to hear sweet hour prayer, and this one just says 2 minutes. And my wife said, well, is 2 minutes too hard for you to try then? His wife challenged him. How about 2 minutes then? Why don't you just do the Lord's Prayer like you said? Start your day saying, Lord, give me today my daily needs. It only takes 2 minutes. You can't do that, but you can do an hour once in a while. So he said, it shamed me. So I started trying to start my morning with a brief prayer. And he said, I have to tell you that it literally has changed my approach to life and my approach to my day. Every day I start off with a fresh start, and I know I got a new page to write on, and I'm writing less and less mistakes and blunders. And I owe it to you. And he died the next morning in surgery in the medical center. Died on the operating table while they were trying to fix his heart. He passed away. And so I thank God that for one moment, even if he didn't hear it from me, he heard it from his wife. His wife said, just listen to the word of the Lord. And the Lord's prayer was this way, pray it. And he did. And he said it changed his life. Listen, his words are life. You know that, don't you? The Bible we read, we preachers butcher it a lot. I have messed a lot of verses up. I've stepped on a lot of feelings with a verse, and I didn't mean to. I think that when we gather together, the Bible's already told us we're here to provoke each other to good works. We're not here to insult each other and put each other down. Our purpose in coming together, according to Scripture, is to provoke each other to good works, do better than we've been doing. But I've stepped on the verses a few times, unknowingly and unwittingly, and probably hurt a few feelings along the way. And I hope I haven't driven anyone away from God or His words, because these words live in us. I look back at so many little things in my life that have just, my mom and dad believed in the Word. My dad couldn't even read the Word. He had a third grade education, never learned to read or write. And so when I was reading well in the second grade, he would make me put the family Bible up on our laps and read the Bible to him. And he told me he was checking up on my reading. I didn't know he couldn't read. So for the next 2 years, I read the Bible to my dad almost every night, the big family Bible, tracing with my fingers so he could see the words, because he fooled me into thinking he was just checking up on me. And inadvertently, he gave me an appreciation for the Word in the second and third grade. I couldn't pronounce any of the names in there. I would say, how do you pronounce this? He'd say, how do you think? I'd guess. He'd say, oh, that's close enough. He didn't have a clue. But you know what happened in my second and third grade years? I found out, not then, I would find out much later, the Word that I was reading, it's a living Word. When I was 10 years old, I went to the pastor on my own and said, I've got to be baptized. I want to be baptized. He said, go talk to your mom and dad. And I'm like, in my mind, why? I want to be baptized, not my mom and dad. And the pastor made me go talk to mom and dad. I went to my mom and dad, and I said, I want to be baptized. I asked Pastor Hush, and he said, talk to my mom and dad. And my mom and dad said, well, son, you don't think you ought to wait till you're a little older? Why? If I'd have known then what I know now, I'd have said, well, what if I die next week? And then they'd have hurried and got me down there, because they'd be paranoid like all you parents are now. And then, oh, my Lord, let's baptize them. They'd have been paranoid. And I didn't know that, so I had to wait a couple of weeks, because I guess they thought it would blow over, that it was a mood I was in. I wasn't in a mood. I was learning early that the Word lives. When you read the Word of God, it wants to change you from within. There's even a verse that says that you are renewed, transformed, metamorphosed. You are transformed by the renewing of the mind. What renews the mind? The reading of the Word. David said, I will hide thy word in my heart that I will not sin. It will make me not sin against you if I hide the word. So his words, you got that? She recognized somehow. Forget tacos. Forget whatever Martha's fixing. Today, I'm in his presence. I need his word. And that's what I hope you're getting today. There's not carpenter's words. This is his words. And then Mary had to risk Martha to do the needful thing. Sometimes if you put the Lord first, some people are not going to like you very much. I don't mean it to be like, it's a divisive thing. I just mean I've had to miss meetings that people thought I should be at because I wasn't going to miss what I thought was the needful thing. I've turned down invitations to go do some fun things because it was going to require me to miss my normal time that I like to spend with the Lord and you. Sometimes you have to know, if I do what I really think the Lord wants me to do, if I want to be alone with Him, if I want to have this, I want to have that, I may not always make everybody understand or approve. They may not know. I think that's why even Jesus taught us, when you pray, pray in secret. Enter into your closet. You don't have to use God for an excuse. You don't have to use church for an excuse. You just have to have your own values and your own morals and know why you live the way you live and who you're really trying to please in your life. And then you make choices according to Him, and it doesn't matter if you lose friends or not. I've told you 1,000 times when my dad dropped me off at the induction station, got drafted in 69, and when my dad dropped me off at the induction station, he didn't know what to say. He gripped the steering wheel hard, looking straight ahead at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning in Dallas, and just stuck his hand over and said, "Don't let them take your faith." I don't even know what that meant then, and I still don't think he knew what it meant. It was the only thing he knew to say. The last mile, we were quiet, and I just thought I wonder if he's going to say, "I love you, son." I hope it's not a tearful moment. I didn't have to worry. He just looked ahead, never even looked. Just, "Son, don't let them take your faith." And I just reached, "Okay, Dad." Shook his hand, got out, and he drove off. I went in the induction station and then wound up in Vietnam. And I have to tell you that when I got to El Paso, Fort Bliss, I'd had a high school habit. My senior year of high school, I started studying the Bible, wanting to know God, and I developed a habit of every night when I did lay down, I would just kneel with a Bible on my bed, and I'd read a verse or two at night, and I'd say a prayer, and I'd close the Bible and go to bed in my senior year of high school. And I'd been out of high school for a year and a half, but I'd still kept that habit up. And so now here I am in a barracks with 200 other men. I don't know, there's a mob of men in the barracks. And it's noisy, and everybody's mad. They got drafted, and it's cussing, and it's swearing, and it's double-stacked bunks this far apart, and there's no privacy at all. And I'm like, oh, my word, I got to kneel down and pray, because I promised God when I got drafted, I'm not going to change my habits just because I'm in the Army. I really regretted that. I wished I could bargain with God. God, you wouldn't mind if I just didn't. I mean, these guys are never going to bed. There were no lights out that first few nights in boot camp, and they're never going to shut up. And I don't want to just kneel there. They're sitting on bunks, and everybody getting acquainted with strangers, and they're mad, and they're telling everybody's out doing the macho business, and they're mean, and it was a terrible night. And I'm so sleepy, and finally I just thought, I just can't. I laid down on the cot, and I can't do this. So I didn't have a Bible, because, you don't have much yet. So I just rolled over and slipped on my knee by my bunk. And fortunately, I'm sleeping on the bottom, so I don't have to jump off the top. I just rolled over. And I was aware it got quiet around me. I mean, the minute I did that, I didn't pray out loud. I just knelt down, because I'd promised God I'd keep that habit. And man, it was tough. I kept waiting on a boot to come. I knew somebody was going to throw something at me. And in that first prayer, that first night in El Paso, Fort Bliss, in that first prayer, once I made the commitment to just whisper my prayer to God and keep my personal devotion up, I realized in that prayer, do I really care what anybody else thinks about me? Am I going to go through this whole military experience worried about what anybody thinks about me? Or am I just going to say, Lord, I just want you to notice me. I just want you, just you and me, God. So I whispered my prayer, and as soon as I crawled back under my covers, the chatter started right around me again, everybody yakking. Nobody said a word to me. Next night, same thing. Third night, I got a Bible from somewhere up in the offices, and I read a couple of verses and said my prayer. I did that all the way through the Army. I did it all the way through Vietnam. I never had a boot thrown at me. I never had anything but respect. I never had anything but friends. I had some of the best guys in Vietnam. I got to witness some of the most awesome things. When guys were having troubles, they would come looking for Carpenter, even if they didn't know me well. I started a Thursday night prayer service. And once in a while, one night I heard a guy yelling, Carpenter in the hooch. And I hollered, I'm back here. And he walked in the hooch and flopped down on my cot. And he was head in his hand. And he said, I just need help. I'm on my way to base shrink. Everybody at base had a psychiatrist, and he said, I'm on my way to shrink, but I had to find you first. We weren't even great friends, and he got to find me. And I said, well, why? I mean, you were both 20 years old. We don't know what we're doing. And he said, I got the disease, and he had been immoral, and with base camp problems, and the mama sons that come on and work in the day, and he had gotten a disease, and his life was over, and he'd gone to the infirmary, and they told him he's going to have to take medicine the rest of his life, and everything's cratered on him, and he doesn't want to go home, and he's having just terrible thoughts, and he flops on my cot. Why? I got nothing for him. I have no medicine. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a preacher. I'm just a 20-year-old kid like he is, hoping we survive this war. And I knew the minute he flopped down, and he said, I just had to come. I wanted to talk to you before I went. I said, I don't know anything to say. The only thing I know to do is pray. That's what I want. And I said, well, then calm down a little bit and let's talk. And so I got him to talk a little bit about what he had done. I learned why he was so upset. And I turned to a few verses and read him some promises that God made. And he asked God to forgive him. And I led him to Jesus sitting there on the cot. And he bawled like a baby, and we didn't care. Nobody cared. He bawled like a baby. And I don't think he ever, I told him, I said, go on to the shrink. I don't think he ever went to the shrink. We stayed friends the rest of that tour. He was fine. He made it home safe and sound. I'm telling you, the Word of God is a living Word, and sometimes in order to live that Word, you just have to risk losing somebody else, and some of you do. I've been very fortunate in life. I have lost very few friends over Jesus in my whole lifetime. I've made a bunch because of Him, but I've lost very few. And so all I want you to do today is just measure your life, your marriage, your parenting, your career, and just ask yourself, in all of your busyness, are you neglecting the one needful thing? Are you spending time with Christ? And are you getting His Word in your heart by your choice instead of just a sermon on Sunday morning? Are you making sure you have a relationship, you and Jesus, side by side, sitting at His feet, hearing His words of life? Are you making sure that that's in you? Are you helping it be part of your marriage, part of your family, part of your career? All of your decisions should focus around Christ and His will. And that's my question today is, are they?